Man United's humiliation against Newcastle at the weekend has led to a hell of a lot of discussion since. Now, what I want to do in this video is run through comments from Paul Scholes. He spoke about Man United's midfield problems, Bruno Fernandes, Scott McTominay. He spoke about Ten Hag's tactical issues. He spoke about overall problems he sees in this United midfield that need to be resolved. And I think it warrants a discussion. So what I'm going to do in this video is take a listen to what Scholes had to say and react to it. Now, you can let me know what you think about everything in the comments below, as you always do. But this one, I think, well, yeah, it raises a few fair conversations. Now, I'm going to jump straight into the first part that Scholes talks about, and that's on Bruno Fernandes.
Captain Bruno, he's all over the place. He's absolutely all over the football pitch, playing anywhere that he shouldn't be. Do you know what I mean? Anywhere his position, where he's best at.
Now, when it comes to United players who I will defend, I will always defend Bruno Fernandes. But Paul Scholes is justified in what he's saying here. There is chaos to Bruno Fernandes' game. And I remember when he became our captain, and I said I wanted to see a maturity of his game. And I'm not quite sure we've seen that just yet. Because, look, I said this on Twitter, after watching that and listening to it for the first time, I said this, and for some reason it was misconstrued. Bruno Fernandes is by some margin the best creative player that we have in this team. If we can get the ball to him in the correct positions, he will create chances. Even against Newcastle, he created 2 clear-cut ones with balls in behind for Garnacho. But he's not in the right position often enough. Is that down to tactics? Is that down to Bruno Fernandes and his full tilt approach? I think it's a bit of both. Bruno's got to rein that in. But of course, it's not just Bruno where the problems exist in midfield.
Now, look, I don't know. I said I want to be in the dressing room and see what the managers tell him. I don't know. But then he's the one as well. Getting players in the positions. McTominay, he's off everywhere as well. You're playing away at Newcastle, a very tough game. Play with discipline. Play with team management. He's got a young lad coming to midfield, Kobe Manu, who did okay. But he needs people next to him. He needs help next to him. You can't just go flying off and being disciplined. At some point, you will get your chances, but play with discipline first.
And Paul Scholes' frustrations there about how Bruno and McTominay played against Newcastle, like, spoiler alert, these same problems have existed all season. In the first game against Wolves, we complained and saw how isolated Casemiro was because of how aggressive Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes were as the 2 aggressive number 8s. Erik Ten Hag has been operating this sort of like man-to-man marking system in midfield. Against Newcastle, it was McTominay marking Joelinton, it was Bruno marking Bruno, and it was Mainu marking Miley. But even Mainu was getting dragged out of position, so there's no midfielder in front of the back 4. It's just not worked. It's just not worked at all. And Scholes is a man who knows how to work inside of midfield. But on the pitch, I always wonder, like, how much authority and autonomy do these players have to sort of, no, don't go over there, come back here? Or is it just properly just listen to the manager's instructions, even when it's not working? That part we can't really know. But something has to give, and something has to change. You look at our record away against the top 9, boy, 1 point from our last 33 available. Same mistakes and same problems. Last 5 games, we conceded 93 shots. This midfield setup is not working, and it has to change. And one final comment here on Bruno Fernandes from Les Ferdinand, actually, that I think is pretty true.
Be an advocate. Is it because he's captain that he feels that he needs to try and lead the team? So he's going all around the place, trying to lift them, trying to get into position. We're saying, well, keep giving me the ball, give me the ball. Yeah. I'll get us going. But that does lead to a bit of indiscipline in terms of what the team want.
That point there from Ferdinand about Bruno's, approach to the game and how maybe that rubs off onto other players, I think is completely correct. But as I said at the start of the video, Bruno is that creative a player that I think you can accommodate him in a midfield team that's balanced enough behind him. But that's not a team that's balanced when you've got McTominay, who also does pretty much similar to what Bruno does, but nowhere near the same sort of level of output. Therefore, you accommodate in a midfield 3 where you've got 2 players that do that, and you've got one 18-year-old who's going to try and cover the rest. It's not a balanced midfield. And I think Bruno's worth the problems that he can be part of creating. I don't think McTominay is. Not together. They cannot be accommodated together. And I keep saying this, and I don't know how Ten Hag isn't seeing this. He must be. He's been a football coach for 20, 30 years. He knows what he's seeing, but he keeps persisting with it. And that stubbornness It's only going to lead to one thing if Erik doesn't change it. Because United, simply put, are too easy to play against because we are, and I mean this in a bad way, completely unpredictable, like Scholes says here.
Sometimes on a football pitch, you can run too much. You can do too much. You can be in too many areas of the field. And I think it's messing the whole team structure up. I can imagine playing central midfield. I wouldn't know where he was. Where is he? Where is he? You'd have to be telling him all the time, look, stay there, stay in that position. It's not good you being on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. Go and get back the ball off the centre half. There's no pattern to your play. You don't know where your players are.
I think every United fan, again, agrees with that point, that no one really knows where anybody's going to be on the pitch at any one time. But when you've got Bruno Fernandes, if you operate him as how we did last season, right? 4-2-3-1, two central midfielders who kind of hold their positions and one number 10 who kind of runs around and operates in that role, then it's a little bit less of a problem because you've got two lines. One, you've got your midfield four, and then you've got your back four to protect the goalkeeper. Whereas now, if you're playing with a system with one isolated number 6, who's man-marking and getting dragged out of position, and two number 8s who are getting man-marking and dragged out of position, and then that gets bypassed, then you have the attack running straight at our defence. And that is exactly why United have conceded so many shots. And Scholes knows a thing or two about playing with players who he knows exactly where they are. And that makes such a difference.
I think a strength of a team, you see Newcastle, every one of them players know where each other is. Do you know what I mean? Is that coaching? I don't know. Is it discipline from them? Ill discipline from Manchester United? But when you know where people are, you wouldn't understand how much of a difference that makes to your football team. Well, when I knew who was next to me. I knew who the wide players were. I didn't even have to look. Do you know what I mean? In this team, they're just so disjointed, so all over the place that it's an indiscipline.
I do find it kind of deeply ironic, really, that we've now reached a point where we're saying the players are running too much, having come from a position where we're saying the players are not running enough. Because we've been imbalanced from the two extremes. Like, Paul Scholes knows a thing or two, as I said, about playing with players who knows exactly where they are. When you create those sorts of partnerships, look, Keane, Scholes, Giggs, Beckham, Rio with speaking about Gary Neville recently, about how he always knew he was behind him. He didn't even have to look. And by doing that and that subconscious confidence you have in your teammates, it allows you to then focus on different areas of the game and allows you to be even better at those areas of the game. But with Manchester United, you can't say with any sort of confidence where Bruno's going to be at any one point in time, where McTominay's going to be at any one point in time. And Mainu, you saw it against Newcastle, him being dragged out of position because he was man-marking, which he didn't do against Everton away. So therefore, it has to be a tactical instruction to man-mark and draw yourself out of position. Erik's got to stop that, man. We have to hold more zonal positional discipline. Mainu, stay in front of the back four. Stay central. Don't really go too wide. Bruno, McTominay, don't man-mark. Don't go for the aggressive front press. If you're going to press as a unit in the middle. Subtle changes like that will make United far more structured. As it stands, we're chaos. And Bruno is a massive example of that because he is a chaos player. When it works, it works. When it doesn't, so much space is left and teams keep exploiting that, like Paul Scholes is saying here.
But it happens that many times. You have to wonder, what is the manager giving to him? Does he like it like that? He can't possibly like it with the way they played tonight.
And that there is the ultimate question that a lot of United fans are asking. What is Ten Hag telling these players to do? That example there of Mainu's performance against Everton versus Mainu's performance against Newcastle. He played differently. He operated differently. Wasn't man-marking against Everton. He was just staying in front of his back four, receiving the ball and finding a teammate. And that composure is what changed United. He took that away from Mainu against Newcastle by operating the man-marking system. I'm pretty convinced that it's down to tactics. I would also like to think, and we speak about this on a podcast as well. Like, surely there's like a point of the pitch where the players are like, man, this ain't working. Like, just like rein it in a little bit. That's what a captain should be able to do. And I might be criticising Bruno Fernandes quite a bit here, but you know what I said about Maguire last season? I said a captain of Manchester United will get more scrutiny. And that's why I think a lot of this conversation here today is about the chaos that Bruno Fernandes does bring in a bad way. There's a lot of good, and I would, as I said at the start, I would defend him like ahead of so many more players because of how incredibly creative he is. But to cover up for the weaknesses of his game, I don't think you can have a number 8 like McTominay alongside him. The balance just isn't there. And you know what wasn't there against Newcastle? And this is the final point. The work rate just wasn't there. The basics.
But as Les said, going back to just giving effort more than anything, working hard. That left back, Livramento, must have got in 4 or 5 times in that first half. Now, 1 time, possibly, yeah. 2 times, half get away with it. But then the 3rd, 4th and 5th time, come on, can you not see that yourself? Can someone not say to him, you've got to be back here? I'm amazed he didn't get taken off at half time. And I think Garnacho's the same, so he walks back.
And that's why Marcus Rashford's performance was such a talking point after the game. That sort of utter lack of effort. But you know what you have to say as well, right? These players, Bruno, McTominay, a lot of the time they are putting in a serious shift, like Galatasaray away. But it's kind of needless running. It's working hard rather than working smart. I think if we're more compact, if Ten Hag kind of not gives up on his principles about the front press, but just accept that you can't do that front press when you've got Martial and Rashford in your team. That's obvious. Adapt or die. Currently, United are dying, and we have been for the last 10 years. I do not want to see Ten Hag get sacked. I want to see him succeed. I remember how good we were last season and how I thought we could genuinely build on that. But right now, we're just stuck in a rut. And Ten Hag right now, with the problems with McTominay and Bruno as the 2 number 8s and the man marking system and the high press that's not working, he's a bit of an architect of his own problems. And I hope he changes them in the next few games we've got coming up, because he has to. Now, I want to know what you think about Scholes' comments, and you let me know what you think in the comments below, as you always do. I think a lot of what he said is fair, and I think it sort of brings up conversations and discussions that we need to have as a community. So you can let me know what you think, as always, and make sure, if you did enjoy it, drop a like on the video. It does make a difference.